want to talk very quickly about vaccination, child vaccination, because I read some interesting stats today, and over the weekend I had a discussion with friends about child vaccination and the debate about it. About 86% of children are not currently, 86% of Australians currently believe that immunisation for children should be compulsory. But what is, I suppose, disturbing is that 14% of Australians believe that it shouldn't be compulsory. Before we get to the debate, and please feel free if you've got an opinion on this, either way, whether or not you believe in child vaccination or you oppose in mandatory child vaccination, either way, you're more than welcome to call in with your opinion, 133353. But before we get to the opinion-based stuff, I think we need to speak to somebody who is far more informed of this and has actually a scientific background to it. He's Dr. Carl Krushenitsky, and he joins me on the line now. Dr. Carl, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dr. Merrick.
Great to have you on the show, Carl. Look, I've wanted to speak to you today because I know that you, as a scientist first and as a doctor, you have very strong opinions based in medicine and science. And I wanted to get the scientific approach to vaccination and why you believe it's so important.
Because otherwise you end up with dead babies. We had a 20-year period in Australia where the number of babies who died from whooping cough was 0. And then one of the current affairs shows on TV started this whole anti-vaccination discussion off. And as a result, people who hadn't been able to read the literature were thinking, well, it's on TV, it might be real, I won't get vaccinated. And then in 1990, I think it was 91, I was there at the kids' hospital when we had the first baby to die of whooping cough in 20 years. And since then, we've had consistent dead babies from whooping cough. But if we had got the herd immunity up, we wouldn't have to have any dead babies.
It seems insane. I think, people think these diseases like whooping cough and these, rubella or whatever it is, this kind of old diseases that we associate with times past. But if somebody said, oh, look, Ebola's around, but here's the vaccination, I often think people would jump to it very, very quickly, people who may not have vaccinated their children. But it is a really simple fact that if they're not vaccinated, children's lives are at risk.
That's right, and even adults. I've got a few friends who have had whooping cough as adults, and basically you're coughing for 3 months. At the end of 3 months, you look at the photos before and after, at the end of 3 months you're still alive, but you just look a haggard wreck. It takes it out of you.
Yep.
And part of the thing that the anti-vaxxers go for is the simple fact that not all vaccines are perfect. Of course they're not perfect. For example, whenever the Muslims make a prayer rug, whenever the Amish make a quilt, they deliberately put in a mistake to show that only God is perfect. So not anything made by the human race is perfect, so why would you expect vaccines to be? And yes, they do have side effects, and yes, they can give you fevers, but when you look at the overall statistics, they are overwhelmingly better. And then people say, I don't want to know the overall statistics, I just want to know the bad stuff, and then they go off from there.
Dr. Carl, is there a sense, I know that this has certainly been, I read something in National Geographic recently about, this war on science. Is there, a group of, a minority, a very small minority of people who are making up their own science?
Yes, there's a wonderful saying from the Nobel Prize winners, which goes, you're entitled to your own opinions, but you're not entitled to your own facts.
Yeah, okay.
And so with regard to climate change is real. We caused it. It was going to be bad. And in 1977, Munich Re, the world's largest insurance company, started factoring climate change into its insurance premiums. And yet even today we have people saying, oh, but it's not real, is it? Mate, the facts are there.
How many people, I've read something that as of 2013, 70,000 Australian children were not properly immunised.
The majority of them will get away with it. But every now and then, a few of them won't. And this kid I remember because the kid died around 2 o'clock in the morning, and it was just so bleak. And the parents said, but it said on TV that you didn't need vaccinations. Well,
Carl, can I ask you, do you think that it should be absolutely mandatory? I mean, my point, and I want people to get involved here, 133353, my point is that school is compulsory in this country. Voting is compulsory in this country. It seems only fit that something that saves children's lives and indeed, potentially adults should be compulsory as well.
Yes. So I have freedom to wave my arms, but my freedom finishes at your nose. So I can't wave my arms and intersect your face. And in the same way, if I don't get my kids vaccinated, then I lead to a decrease in herd immunity and your children dies. Well, that could be the direct cause. It's messy. It's very messy. I tend to think it should be compulsory, as should be the paying of tax.
Yep. Okay. Well, I think that's never going to not be compulsory. Dr. Carl Krasniewski, thank you very much for your time. You can also get Dr. Carl's book, House of Carls, which is an excellent read. I didn't actually read it, but I looked at some of the pictures and a friend of mine said it was good. So, I read the back of it, Carl.
You're a good boy. And by the way, with regard to tax being compulsory, it's only an option for the wealthy, and some of the wealthy choose not to exercise that option.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Whole other kettle of fish, Carl. Whole other conversation, mate. Thank you very much for being on the show. We'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you.
Dr. Carl Krasniewski there. Let me know your opinion. 133353. Do you think that child vaccination should be compulsory, mandatory in this country? Currently talking about mandatory vaccination for children in Australia. 86% of Australians believe that childhood vaccination should be compulsory, but there's still 14%, which is actually quite a lot, of people who don't believe it should be compulsory. There is currently a loophole that the government is investigating where parents who philosophically object to giving their children life-saving vaccines could be prevented from accessing welfare payments and subsidies as well. The government are reviewing that at the moment. But the thing is with the accessing welfare payments, a lot of the people who choose not to, and my understanding, and this could be, completely wrong, but I don't think it is, a lot of the people who choose not to vaccinate their children are actually in well-to-do suburbs and affluent. And so they're not necessarily going to qualify for those sorts of childcare subsidies or welfare payments anyway. So it's interesting that it's actually a lot of the anti-vaccination is led by very well-educated people who still refuse to see the science. We just spoke to Dr. Carl. He thinks it should be mandatory. Personally, I think it should be compulsory. I think anything that saves children's lives should be. But I'm open to hearing opinions. We've got Viv, who's in the inner west of Sydney. Hi, Viv.
Hi, how are you?
Good. What's your opinion on this?
Okay, well, my little girl is 9 years old and she has autism. So constantly people come up to me and they say things like, I won't give my child a vaccination because they might get autism. This is not true. The doctor was struck off some time ago, but that doesn't seem to be able to make it through. So it's really good that you're having this discussion because it's facts that people do not have. You can go and look at it on Google. It's a German guy who actually decided he actually faked all of the data and got it up. That was all good. But the problem is, once it gets debunked and once people get it into their heads and start believing it, it's really hard for people to go, well, actually, people don't like to feel like they've been had. Yep. And I think that's why people don't like to sort of go, well, actually, it doesn't cause autism at all.
Yep. So just to clear this up for some people, Viv, one of the major arguments for people who are against compulsory vaccination or child vaccination at all is because they believe that it can lead to autism in children. Right. You've got an autistic child and you don't believe that there's a correlation?
Absolutely not. In fact, I come from a family of doctors and pharmacists, and I have had access to the facts the whole time, and it's not true. The problem is it's a coincidence thing. Autism, when kids start getting to about 2 years old, and I know you've got kids, and you know that that's when they start doing stuff and developing. That's when autism also rears its head because of that. So it's a coincidence. 2 and 2 don't make,
Exactly.
5.
Exactly. You can't jump to conclusions just because two things seem to correlate. Viv, thank you very much for calling in and sharing that. We've got Murray, who I believe disagrees with both Viv and myself and other people. Murray, what's your opinion, mate?
Hey, man, how are you?
Yeah, very good indeed. You are against compulsory vaccinations?
Absolutely, bro. It should always be about choice. The simple fact, you need to read the insert that comes with the vaccination bottle.
I have done, because I've got kids.
Ask your nurse.
Yep.
Ask to read it. There's a toxicology information section for each vaccination. It describes what it does and the fact that you are contagious for the next 60 days and you should be quarantined. You should also read the material data safety sheet.
Yep.
For a product called MOPS, M-O-P-S.
Yep.
This is what they put in a lot of the vaccinations, especially for the Hep B that they give to babies. And it is completely toxic. The head statistician from the CDC in America recently came out and said that vaccinations do cause autism and that they had to fake the data to get all the vaccinations through the FDC. So the information's there to read. You can find it out for yourself. But what is more alarming is that people who are vaccinated are spreading diseases.
Mate, Murray, can I ask you, do you have children?
Yes, sir. I have two.
Are they immunised?
My first one was immunised for the first 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, I was doing research and realised that it was a wrong thing to do. My second child is not vaccinated at all.
But don't you think that the government, who is, largely their entire purpose is to look after our well-being as a nation, so as a collective, don't you think that they've done enough research that if they thought there was anything that was, for us to be concerned about, that they would protect us from that?
That's what they said
information
about
Sorry?
Yeah, but that's what they said about thalidomide, bro. And look what thalidomide did to people.
No. That's not. The government didn't. Murray, the government did not encourage people to take thalidomide. That was a medical choice. This is about a government saying that this is good for the nation. We've got to separate those two. They didn't tell people to take thalidomide. Well, they are telling people to immunise children. There is a very distinct difference there, mate.
Well, okay. Well, you're talking about mandatory vaccination. You're talking about forcing it upon people, putting poisons in their body and cancer viruses. I don't agree with doing that.
Okay, Murray, look, I understand what you're saying about choice too. I respect the desire to have choice, but I just think when it's children's welfare, when it's the children's welfare at stake, I think everybody just has to take the bullet, and I mean that, almost literally. Daniel, hello, mate, how are you?
Good, mate, how are you?
Yeah, good. What is your opinion on this?
Mate, I'm about to be a first-time dad in September, and there is no way in the world that I would not protect my child. I've even had a whooping cough booster injection myself,
Smart.
which I was totally unaware of until my GP told me about it. And there is no way that I would never, ever risk my kid not getting protection against something which could potentially kill them. It's just ludicrous to even think that.
It's just so divided, isn't it, Daniel? Because it's just speaking to Murray, and I've got to be honest, I support what he says about choice and stuff like that, but towards the end of the conversation...
But at the end of the day, like you said, you just have to bite the bullet on this. You really do.
Yeah.
It's welfare's at stake. I totally agree with you, Mary.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Well, thanks for agreeing with me, Daniel. That's important. Lastly, we've got Erin. Hello, how are you, Erin?
I'm good, Merrick. How are you?
Yeah, very good indeed. What's your thoughts? First of all, are you a mum?
I am a mum. I'm a mum of 3 kids,
Good on you.
14-year-old and 4-year-old twins. All 3 of them have autism.
All 3 of your children have autism?
I've literally just walked out of the paediatrician getting the 3rd one diagnosed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your thoughts on compulsory vaccination are what?
We need to be vaccinated. I think as a nation, as the whole world has become complacent. We've never lived through bouts of polio. We haven't had cases of diseases like this that have come through and wipe people out. Of course there's going to be a risk of having a vaccination, just like there's a risk of everything. You walk down the street, you drive a car, there's a risk that something's going to happen. If you have a life-saving operation, there's a risk that something could happen.
That's a very good point.
Are you going to stop? Are you not going to have that life-saving operation because of that chance? I also know of a lady who has 6 children. I think only one of them is immunised, and I think 4 or 5 of them actually have autism.
See, it's very interesting that, because the big debate or the big argument for a lot of people who are anti-immunisation is autism. But
yeah, look, I totally agree with what Viv said, Yeah, the one that they say causes the autism the most, I think, is the MMR, measles, mumps, rubella, which is given around 18 months. Now, I'm also early childhood trained. As Viv said, around that 18 months to 2 years old, that's when your kid starts talking. That's when they start doing more. Mm-hmm. That's when you start noticing. Yep. Now, if you actually speak to parents who have got 3 and 4 kids diagnosed, they actually will start noticing things before this.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's...
Yeah, you're spot on, Erin.
That's it, and we need to vaccinate, because I tell you, we're going to start getting diseases like this coming out, and
unfortunately, to prove them wrong, we have to have a near disaster, and that's the saddest thing. It's like climate change. To prove people the denier's incorrect, you have to have something cataclysmic. Erin, thank you very much for your call. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but thanks to everybody who did call in, and particularly to Viv and Erin, a couple of mums there who have got autistic children and don't believe that it's a result of vaccination.